We are on chapter 17 of Gypsy Rose's book, My Time to Stand, and I wish I could tell you guys different, but the first couple minutes is really sad. It's all, I'm a victim. Think of me as a victim. She goes in and tells us about how they didn't know what illnesses that she really had, so they had to put her under surveillance, and how they had to keep a close eye on her to figure out what was true and what wasn't true with her diagnosis and what she had provided to them. But Gypsy, you knew that you didn't have like cancer and everything. You've told us this in the last couple of chapters. So why did you tell them that you had that? Why didn't you just tell them that it was all a lie? Did you not want to be caught up in the fraud? Let's be honest. She goes in and she says that they have to put her on, watch, like self-unalive watch. Now, what she hasn't told us is that her co-defender, Nick, had also been put on self-unalive watch, that he was inconsolable, and they had to put him in a mental unit because the only thing that he cared about was her, and that he wanted to make sure he was in constant worry if she was okay and how she was doing, and he was very upset about everything that had happened and what had went down, and he felt a lot of pain for what he had done and what he had caused people. And here she is, only worried about the food in prison. She goes on and she complains about the food and how everything's just horrible in prison, like food's expired and it's dirty. It's prison. She tells us that another reason why she was put on the unalive watch was for her own protection, because she was such a public icon. Like, she was famous. But we have heard from other inmates that were in lockup with her that people really didn't give a shit about her. And she explains to us the tiers of prison. She was put on tier 2 because she was like a more extreme violent offender. And then she tells us that the inmates were more like wolves, and they'd bare their teeth and assert their dominance. She tells us when she gets to her 6x6 foot cell, while she's complaining the entire time, she says that she was roomed with 2 naked ladies. And we're going to hear how she feels about the ladies that she was roomed up with in her cell. Things get pretty extreme in this chapter, guys. But she stated that one day, one of her roomies in the cell had heard the officer do the morning routine and had said, "Oh yeah guys, it's time for our daily graping," and that this terrified Gypsy. Now, she said in the cell where it was unalive watch, it was for like mentally disturbed inmates, that they had to eat with cardboard spoons and forks, which I'm sure that is a thing. I'm not making fun of that. It's just the way that she complains about it. And that anytime she would cry or anything like that, the cellmates would make fun of her and laugh at her. She said that the officers treated her like trash, like she wasn't a human, because they were doing their job and had to check the cells on a daily basis. Sweet pea. They were checking your cell to make sure there's nothing in there that you guys would get harmed on, because if you would harm yourself and they didn't find whatever they were supposed to prevent that from happening, then that's a lawsuit. It's a lawsuit. Okay? They weren't they weren't treating you any different than what they would treat anyone else. Don't act like you're such a thing. Like, it's really appalling that she doesn't refer to her fellow cellmates as people. She calls them naked ladies. They're all naked ladies, guys. All of them. She said that one of her cellmates would just talk to themselves, and then the other cellmate would just howl or yell at the wall and whatever. Then she goes into graphic detail about one of her cellmates, one of, I guess, her least favorite cellmate, who would play in her own feces, so Gypsy would say. She says that she played with her excrement like Play-Doh, y'all, and that it was just out of boredom because they would only allow her 1 10-minute call a day and like very little recreational time. It stated that the cellmate didn't shower and was nasty and dirty, and this is just common with Gypsy. Everyone's nasty and dirty and they don't take showers and they're hoarders and everything else. Like, get some new content insults, girl. Boring. It's giving uneducated. And after making fun of this lady or the cellmate for so long, she wants us to see her as the good Samaritan that she is. She said that she wasn't bringing these details up to make fun of this girl, but to bring notice to the prison system and how they treat the mentally ill. Kind of like how you treated Nick, right? But that's not the kind of discussion that you would like to have, right? What about his mistreatment? What about how he was treated? But that was fair. I guess when the mistreatment comes from you, then it's justifiable, but if anybody else does it, then it's not. If this jail doesn't sue you, I'm gonna be very upset. She tells us about how she wanted to unalive herself with her smock, and said that that could come to great use because she was forced to be around the cellmate right after telling us that she felt sorry for this inmate and felt like the prison had just done her so wrong. She says comments like this: "If you are that cellmate, come forward. We want to hear it." And then she tells us the story about how she met Christy and Broad. She stated that they had looked at her in complete shock when they had first seen her after her being imprisoned, and she said that it was happy and kind of sad, because they were happy that she was able to walk and her health was great, but then they were sad that she couldn't come to them before. Like, Rod, why didn't you reach out to your own child? She goes in about Mike and how he told her about her Munchausen by proxy and how everything that had happened to her was medical fraud. And she stated that she didn't understand half of what he said. She then tells us about her asking Christy and Rod about her mother's funeral, in which they told her that there was no money to have one. Yeah, but Gypsy kind of stole some money, like $4,000. That could have been helpful. And then also, what about that money that you left behind, Gypsy? What happened to that? Did they take that? They couldn't sell stuff to get this woman a funeral? It's because they chose not to have her a funeral. They chose to cremate her, just discard her, just like you did. She said that this made her feel so unclean that she craved holy water. And of course, Miss Gypsy's getting baptized for like the 7th time. She goes in and tells us once again that she's withdrawing from her medications, her pain medications, and that she felt like the jail or the prison was just doing this to her so she could withdraw. But honey, most people who have an active addiction when they're put in prison, the prison system does provide them with medications to help relieve those symptoms. I guess this chapter is going to have a part 2 because there's a couple things I want to go over for the rest of the chapter. I don't know. I'm getting tired, guys. So glad this is almost over. I'm going to cry happy tears, but yeah.